Police cars come in many shapes and sizes depending on their role, and while Ford controls about 61% of the police market, other manufacturers offer options as well. But cop cars have almost always been upfitted versions of manufacturers' standard cars, and when in 1950 Ford created their Interceptor. And then in 2003, a new company was formed to make a purpose-built police car from the ground up to meet the specific needs of law enforcement professionals. With some smart thinking and a deep knowledge of their market, the company got a lot of interest, but then just 10 years later, they closed their doors, never delivering a single vehicle. So welcome back to All Cars, y'all. If you're new here, my name is John, and this is the story of Carbon Motors and their E7, yesterday's police cruiser of the future that wasn't. Now, I did a whole video on the history of the police vehicle, and while different manufacturers like Ford or Dodge or Chevy have done well in the past at different times, no one had created a vehicle from scratch designed to meet the needs of police. Our story starts back in 2003 when two gentlemen, Stacy Stevens, who had been a Texas police officer, and William Santana Lee, who had been an executive with Ford since about 1990, came together to create Carbon Motors in Los Angeles. There's not much information on those earliest years, and in 2006 the company relocated to Atlanta, Georgia to develop the car and woo investors. In 2008, they started their Pure Justice tour around the US, showcasing their prototype, drumming up interest, and soliciting feedback. After only 3 years in Atlanta, in 2009, in a surprise announcement, Carbon said they were moving to Connersville, Indiana. Governor Mitch Daniels, the mayor, 2 US senators, and some guy named Congressman Mike Pence were on hand to announce the company's intention to convert an existing Visteon plant for their use, planning to invest $350 million. It was estimated the company would have a direct and indirect impact of 10,000 jobs and over $3 billion in economic impact over 10 years. A press release by the company on the event noted that over 3,000 law enforcement professionals from all 50 states and across local, state, and federal levels helped design the Carbon E7 to meet their needs. The market was large and ripe for consolidation. At the time, it was estimated law enforcement purchased 75,000 new vehicles a year spread across several companies, and with some being built outside the U.S. Carbon promised American-made, more efficient and clean diesel powertrains and a vehicle that would meet all crash test standards with all law enforcement equipment in place, a standard the upfitted vehicles from others didn't have to meet when over 50% of law enforcement injuries occur within the vehicle. It was announced the E7 would go on sale in 2012. About 9 months later, in 2010, Carbon Motors announced they were partnering with BMW to supply 240,000 engines. At its heart, the car had a unique aluminum space frame said to be capable of withstanding a 75-mile-an-hour crash and designed for a 250,000-mile lifespan, claimed to be more than double that of other police cars. It was rear-wheel drive, had a 6-speed auto, and that BMW straight-six turbo diesel promised performance estimated at 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds and a top speed of 155 with an estimated 40% better fuel efficiency than its gas-powered options. Heck, they even claimed the car was to be 95% recyclable. And to keep the E7 exclusive to the law and not see it become a taxi at the end of its life, if an agency couldn't find another agency to buy one, Carbon would buy it back from them to recycle. And of course, it came with tons of goodies like emergency lights embedded in the roof, integrated computer and shotgun mounts, heads-up display, audio and video surveillance of the rear compartment, automatic license plate recognition and speed detection, a 360-degree exterior surveillance with recording, secured compartments for storage, and extra-wide seats for officers wearing utility belts. The rear had suicide doors, and the compartment was made of seamless, washable plastic with drain plugs in the floor for hosing it out. Of the many options available were ballistic protection panels and biological and chemical agent detectors. Beyond the police community, by 2010, the E7 had a bit of fame when it was included in Need for Speed Hot Pursuit as a playable vehicle, albeit with its performance statistics being listed as classified. In early 2013, the company also announced 2 other upcoming products, First, the TX7 van, a $150,000 diesel V8 armored specialty vehicle for up to 10 SWAT team members or for hauling relief supplies to communities over roads covered with debris. Second, the CT7 autonomous surveillance vehicle, about which there's no information I could dig up other than a picture. By then, the company was burning through the private and public funds it had raised, estimated to be about $200 million. Around 2009, the company had applied for a $310 million federal loan under the Advanced Technology Vehicles Manufacturing Loan Program from the government and administered by the Department of Energy. This was the same route Tesla used to get a $465 million loan for a factory and to start production of the Model S, and which it must be noted they later repaid. And also the same program that Fisker used, where they received $192 million out of $528 million awarded before they ended up declaring bankruptcy. So after 30 months of negotiation, addressing the DOE's concerns throughout and multiple approvals along the way, the DOE rejected the application outright in March of 2012. And this is in spite of the company having over 20,000 orders for the car. Immediately, the company claimed the denial was politically motivated around the 2012 election, but Secretary Chu responded in a Senate hearing that, quote, politics is not a factor, period. It has to do with the finances of the company and the viability of the loan. One requirement was that recipients had to be financially viable for the length of the loan, and in hindsight, it appears that Secretary Chu was right. By March 2013, Carbon began to vacate the plant. Its lease expired March 31st, 2013, and by April, the company was shut down. In its bankruptcy filing, they listed over $21 million in debts and only $19,000 in assets, the one completed E7 that was later auctioned off. So what happened next in their story? Well, it appears the founders, Mr. Stevens and Lee, relocated to the San Francisco Bay Area. That CT7 autonomous surveillance vehicle I mentioned just a few moments ago, well, it turns out that was pretty prescient, as they later went on in 2013 to found the company Nightscope, which still works in the security arena, specifically making patrol robots for places like malls and schools. So in spite of a lot of press, a little video game fame, and some great ideas, the Carbon E7 appears to be the answer to a question that no one actually asked. Price was never officially announced by Carbon, but it was said to be competitive when compared to completely equipped competition. A CNET article from 2009 quoted a $50,000 base price, and when loaded up with all of the bells and whistles could rise to $80,000. A fascinating article from The Truth About Cars in 2013, they did the legwork to take a base V8 Dodge Charger that started under $24,000 and load it out at retail prices from emergency equipment vendors. The total came out to $39,485. You may think that money doesn't matter to the government, but for local and state levels, it absolutely does, primarily because they can't just print anymore. Being able to buy 2 Dodges fully equipped for the price of one Carbon E7 is a big, big deal. And perhaps this is the fact that the DOE uncovered when they questioned its viability. Sadly, I think this company and what they were trying to achieve is largely unknown. With the after effects of the Great Recession, it quietly closed down, largely unnoticed except for those in the auto world and those, of course, in Connorsville. But it was overshadowed by the much more public bankruptcies of Fisker and the growing success of Tesla. And perhaps the greatest example of the sad end to Carbon Motors happened 7 years later in 2020, when Need for Speed Hot Pursuit was remastered, and the Carbon E7 was just quietly removed from the game. Thanks so much for being here, and a special thanks to my patrons for their support, helping make videos like this possible. If you like the video and you feel like I've earned it, please consider a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing. If you absolutely loved it and you want to see more just like this, first off, leave a recommendation below on a topic you'd like to see me do, and consider supporting the channel. I appreciate your time. Thanks for being here, y'all.